Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about walls, but not the ancient ones from history books. We're talking about the ones being built right now. And we're going to uncover the surprising, almost invisible force that actually builds them. So you probably think of walls as something from the past. You know, the Great Wall of China, Hadrian's Wall. But get this, we are living in the greatest wall-building era in all of human history. Yeah, you heard that right. Since just 2001, more than 50 countries have put up new barriers along their borders. So that begs the question, what is a wall really for? Is it just about steel and concrete? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the surprising truth. Walls are actually built with powerful stories, long before the first piece of fencing ever goes into the ground. Okay, so to really get a handle on this global phenomenon, let's start with perhaps the most talked about wall in the world today. When you hear the phrase border wall, what image pops into your head? For most of us, it's something like a single, massive, unbroken concrete barrier stretching from coast to coast. But the reality on the ground, it looks almost nothing like that myth. All right, so let's really dig in and just shatter that myth of the one single continuous wall. See, the so-called wall isn't one thing at all. It's more like a patchwork. You've got vehicle blockades in one spot, these tall steel bollards in another, and then maybe just some chain link fences somewhere else. And they often start and stop in the most random, unexpected places. And just look at how surreal this can get. What you're seeing here in Brownsville, Texas, is the wall literally slicing right through someone's backyard. I mean, think about that. It actually walls off American citizens on the southern side of the fence in their own country. And it gets even stranger. In so many other places, you'll see miles and miles of this huge, imposing steel fence, and then it just stops, right in the middle of a field, leaving these vast stretches of the border completely open. In fact, when you add it all up, these physical barriers, the fences, the bollards, the whole shebang, they only cover about a third of the entire 3,200-kilometer border between the United States and Mexico. Only a third. Okay, so if it's not a complete physical barrier, it's not even close, then what is its real function? Well, to answer that, we have to look at what builds a wall before a single piece of steel is ever put in the ground. And that right there, that brings us to the absolute core idea of this explainer. Walls aren't just built with concrete and steel. They're built with stories. There's this really fascinating concept from legal experts called law as narrative. And the basic idea is this. Law isn't just a dry, boring set of rules. No, it's actually a storytelling process. It creates these powerful characters in our national story. You've got the citizen, the immigrant, the illegal alien. And it's the law that decides who belongs inside and who gets cast as an other. And it's really incredible to see how this works in practice. Take a look at this. This is a direct quote from a 1928 report by an immigration inspector arguing for why a fence was needed. This language isn't just describing a place, it's building a whole story of threat, danger, and decay. And what's wild is if you dig through over 100 years of official documents, you see these same themes popping up again and again and again. Stories about crime, stories about disease, economic collapse. It's a narrative that's very deliberately crafted to frame migrants as a physical danger that has to be walled off. And this is where it all comes together. This is the crucial takeaway. These stories, they don't just stay on paper. They physically shape our world. And there is no better way to see this in action than by comparing America's two great land borders. You've got these two completely different worlds created by two completely different stories. For the southern border, the story's all about threat, suspicion, and criminality. But for the northern border with Canada, the narrative is one of peace, friendship, and cooperation. And these two opposing stories create two landscapes that could not be more different. So on the southern border, the landscape totally reflects that story of threat. Here at Friendship Park, a place that's supposed to be for connection, a heavy steel mesh makes it impossible to even touch. Over in Nogales, you see this imposing wall sneaking over the hills, a constant visual reminder of division. Now, compare that with the International Peace Garden on the US-Canada border. As you can see, the contrast is just staggering. Instead of a desolate, guarded zone, you have a welcoming, open atmosphere. Instead of prison-like visits, people can literally just stroll freely between the countries. And the barrier? It's not a fence. It's a stone monument pledging peace. It's a world away. And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast. In some places on the northern border, the international boundary is literally a line of flowers. Why? Because the underlying story is one of trust and cooperation, not one of threat and suspicion. So what's the big picture here? It's that a wall is never just a wall. It's a powerful symbol, and its meaning is always being contested. Yeah, there is a fancy academic term for this, a polysemic symbol, which just means a symbol with many meanings. For someone who feels their way of life is under threat, the wall can mean security and safety. But for someone on the other side, it means exclusion, hostility, and division. The story it tells depends entirely on your perspective. But the official narrative isn't the only one. People constantly challenge and subvert the wall's meaning through art, community, and even sports. In this annual game of volleyball, residents use the border fence itself as the volleyball net, turning a tool of division into a site of connection. So let's just trace the full cycle one more time. It always begins with a story, a narrative that creates an us versus a them. That story gets written into law, creating a legal justification for a physical barrier. And finally, the very presence of that concrete wall reinforces the original story, making the division feel natural and permanent. It's a powerful feedback loop. And that brings us to the final and most crucial point. The walls we see in the world are rarely the beginning of the story. They are the end. They are the concrete result of the stories we choose to tell about who we are and who we are not. And if that's true, it means that if we ever want to change the physical landscape, we first have to be brave enough to change the story.
Enjoyed this video? Please like, share it with a friend, and press the bell icon to never miss an update.